Hello, Braveheart Brothers. This is Richard checking in from South Georgia with some thoughts today for Man Talk Monday. And I'd like to talk with you about the importance of quietness and stillness. It's kind of ironic, really, because I'm actually one of the least quiet people that you probably would ever meet. I am all the time talking, I've got a lot to say. But I had an experience many years ago I want to tell you about that started to set my mind towards the value of stillness and quietness. It was New Year's Eve in 2009. I was about 6 months into my addiction recovery journey. And so, as you can imagine, that 6 months had a lot of ups and downs to it. There were some wonderful things happening in my life and in my growth, but also it was a very difficult time for me and my family. And on this particular New Year's Eve, I'd chosen to do something that I'd never done before. I chose to attend a retreat, an addiction recovery retreat. I had been on those before, but at the expense of my holiday time with my family. In other words, I chose to not be with my family and my children on New Year's Eve. That had never happened before. I'd always been with my kids and my family and among friends, really ringing in the new year the way that people most often do, with a lot of exuberance, a lot of, partying, eating, firecrackers going off, things like that. Really loud way that most people bring in the new year. And so, even though it was a really good decision for me to be a part of this addiction recovery retreat, because so many wonderful things happened, I really gained a lot from that several days. It was tough because it was my first time to have a New Year's Eve without my kids. And so I was kind of torn. I was struggling a little bit there. And I remember the Catholic priest who was facilitating this retreat. As it got close to 12 midnight, we had a big, wonderful worship service, and it was super impactful and inspirational. But as it was like 5 or 10 minutes before 12 midnight, this priest explained how we were going to do that. He says, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to adjourn this meeting. We're going to go out onto this really wonderful, large, spacious balcony area in this beautiful, old-fashioned church. We're going to go up to the balcony. And when we get up there, it's going to be a few minutes before 12. And what I want us to do is I want us to go up there, and this is the phrase he used. He says, we're going to let the old year pass in silence. And that was a totally foreign concept to me, but instantly when he said it, something about that grabbed my heart. And so that's what we did. We bundled up. It was so cold. It was up in New York State. That's where I lived at the time. And so we went out onto that balcony, and sure enough, within 4 or so minutes, then the church bells chimed and let us know that it was midnight. But just before midnight, as we were all out there as a fairly large group, but we were just being quiet. We were being silent and still. And as I looked up, and I was still struggling, knowing at this very moment what my kids were doing and my friends were doing, but here I am in this, standing on this balcony with a lot of people, most of whom I didn't know real well, out in the cold. And yet I really sensed the presence of the divine in that moment. And I knew God was with me. And it started to snow right then. It was like in a movie. I'm telling you, it was the wildest thing. And as the snow was kind of hit, those flakes are hitting my face, I was just starting to feel the beauty of that moment of sitting in silence. And then the church bells rang out, signifying that it was 12 midnight. And after the church bells finished chiming and the new year had come, the old year had passed in silence, then that large group of us, we began to celebrate together, and we got a little loud, and we're greeting each other with New Year's blessings. It was just a very unique experience. Now, the reason I tell you that story is because I had never considered, especially on New Year's Eve, moments of stillness and quiet and silence. And yet it was so powerful. So much so that it sparked a hunger in me to regularly experience moments of quietness, moments of stillness. And that has become this big craving in me, a big part of my spiritual practices now, is regularly experiencing stillness. In fact, even on holidays and even on New Year's Eves, where every New Year's Eve since 2009, I've had the wonderful privilege of being with family and friends and often with my children. And it's raucous, and it's loud and now disclaimer is I'm getting a little older and I don't even always make it to 12 midnight on New Year's Eve anymore. But however we choose to ring in the new year, it's always loud and it's fun. But I have instituted, even on New Year's Eves, the practice for myself and members of my family who will do it with me, the practice of finding moments of silence where we can just pause and experience some stillness and some calmness. And we can enjoy marking the new year that way, or whatever holiday it might be. Now, the reason I wanted to share all that with you is that I have a sense that we could, as a Braveheart community, each of us, we could benefit from practicing stillness and practicing silence and quietness throughout the week in our own lives. And I would just encourage us, let's take a shot at that. Let's take a shot at putting a priority on finding moments of quiet, moments of calm, moments of stillness. There are, I think, waiting for us. If we were to engage this type of adventure in our journeys, I think there are powerful moments that we can have with ourselves and we can have with our God as we understand Him. And in fact, I believe that a man who is able to sit in quietness and calm and stillness is going to deepen his relationship with his own heart. That's what I've been experiencing, and that's what I hope for us all. There's a verse in the Old Testament of the Bible, in Isaiah chapter 30, and it says, "In quietness and confidence will be your strength." Strength will come not only from moments of hyping ourselves up or hearing a really rousing inspirational speech or listening to cool hype music while we're getting ready to engage in working out or other endeavors. Those are cool, right? But that verse that I just read you said that strength can come from moments of calm and moments of quiet as well. There's also another verse in Psalm 131, verse 2, that says, "I have stilled and quieted my soul." And I believe that's a skill that is necessary for men to become strong, to become confident, to find peace with themselves, with their own hearts, with their journey, and with our God. And so I just want to share with you just for a couple of minutes what it looks like when I try to engage moments of stillness and quietness and calmness. The first step for me is trying to slow down. Now, I actually am intentional about scheduling time to do this multiple times during the week. On a good week, it happens every day. But I schedule time to be still, to be quiet. And so when that time comes, I try to decelerate. I just try to slow down. Not just the pace of how I might be working and moving and walking around, but slow down in my mind, slow down in my heart. I start trying to breathe a little bit slower. And then I engage this little pattern that I want to share with you. It's all these words start with the letter A, right? And so the first word is after slowing down just a little bit and breathing, I try to be attentive. I try to notice and I try to listen. And what I'm talking about there specifically is about my environment. I am a person for whom slowing down and calming, it basically goes from the external to the internal. I don't really have the skill of being able to just chill out in my mind and my heart. I go external to internal. So that means that I slow down, and when I decelerate, and then I try to be attentive to what's around me, to the room I'm in. Often I have my moments of times of silence right here in my backyard. And I just try to be attentive. I try to notice things, listen to things. Dead silence is not necessary. I'm out here, the birds are chirping. While I've been recording this in a shrubbery not far from here, there's a bird flapping his wings. At any moment, it could fly out and charge me. I don't know. But I noticed that, and I'm just like, how interesting is that? And these external factors that I begin to notice and become aware of, be attentive to, and I just listen. And as I'm being attentive, then I'm able to transition to being attentive to my own heart, to my body, to how I'm feeling. Do I feel like I need to stand up and walk instead of sit? Or am I comfortable sitting? How's the pace of my breathing? And then I'm able to just take that attentiveness that I had to my surroundings and internalize it. So attentiveness is where I begin. And then I have a moment of acceptance where, and all this, it kind of happens pretty quick, it's not some long drawn out thing, but for me, when I'm attentive, I begin to accept it and say, yes, this is where I am. I am here. I'm not going to wish I was somewhere else. I'm not going to try to rush through this so that I can't go somewhere else. I'm going to be attentive, and then I'm going to accept this is where I am right now. And maybe it's cold, or maybe it's a little warm, or maybe it's not perfect, or maybe my neighbor started running the lawnmower while I was in my moments of silence. It's okay. I'm going to accept that. That's just where I'm at, and I'm going to choose to be where I'm at instead of trying to not be here or trying to be somewhere else. And that becomes an external to internal pattern as well. Then I can just say, in my heart, in my mind, there are things that may be frustrating me, but I'm going to be accepting, and I'm going to say this is where I am, and I'm not going to rush away from that. So it's attentiveness, it's acceptance, and then it's appreciating, and then it's being able to just say thank you and to be grateful for where I am, for what I'm hearing or not hearing, what I'm feeling or not feeling. Gratitude, where I can even just thank God for the things that He's placed around me in the moment and the spot that He's planted me in. And after that, I begin to ask questions. Curiosity. It takes me into a conversation with myself in my own heart. I start asking myself, so how are you doing about this week? Or how are you feeling? Or how do How are you about that thing that happened yesterday, or that conversation that didn't go so well, or that wonderful breakthrough that you're celebrating? I'm able to interview myself and just have a conversation, and I bring God into that conversation. And I say, God, what do you have to say about this? So these are my moments of quiet and stillness. That's how I quiet my soul. That's how I bring stillness to my soul, which sometimes wants to be really loud and run at an incredibly maybe unreasonable or unrealistic pace. These are the ways that I quiet my soul. And in these moments, I keep my journal handy, because sometimes my mind might try to race and start thinking about stuff I need to do, and then I just pause and write my to-do list down, and I don't let it hijack my whole time. I keep my Bible with me so that I can hear the words of God and strengthen my soul by communing with the divine. It is the coolest practice that I think that I've developed over these years of my addiction recovery. And it all started with a Catholic priest saying, we're going to let 2009 pass in silence, and we're going to welcome 2010 in a different way than you normally do New Year's Eve. It just was a big deal, a big breakthrough, and it started me on a journey that I want us all to experience. And I think as a community, as a Braveheart community, it would be great if we could just talk and engage and say, hey, this is how it works for me. This is some ideas, some hacks that we could share with each other about learning to still and quiet our souls. The act of stillness can make a big difference in a man's journey. And it can take our relationship with our own heart and our relationship to God to new levels. So I encourage you guys, let's do that. Let's engage this process. And so thank you for listening to this Man Talk Monday. I hope it's a help to you. If you like it, you can like the video, you subscribe, you can share it, whatever might be helpful. But thank you again for being a part of the Braveheart men's community. And let's move forward together and continue this journey as brothers. Thank you again, guys. We'll talk to you soon.